Wrapping up this episode with the Louisville Cardinals. You mentioned them earlier. You kind of had a transition to Louisville earlier, decided to save it for now. The Jimmies and the Joes are pretty high on the Cardinals, and I think it's obvious to see why. The offense should be really fun. There's no reason to believe that a Jeff Brohm offense isn't going to throw the ball extremely effectively, right? And Louisville went 9-4 last season. They bring in Miller Moss, who did some big things at USC. The turnovers got him, though, and that was ultimately what got him benched at USC. But boy, you look across this offense, and outside of the offensive line, which I have some concerns about, it's not hard to start to fall in love with the points that Louisville could put up.
You're absolutely right. I think my only concern about Louisville and why I said they might have more questions than Pitt is I'm just asking myself, can Jeff Brohm keep getting away with this? Because in his first 2 years at Louisville, he's taken straight up cast-offs from other programs. Jack Plummer had some nice moments at Cal, and I know he had the connection with Jeff Brohm from their time at Purdue, but turned him into a bona fide all-ACC quarterback, and he was running a fantastic offense 2 years ago. Then he takes Tyler Shuck, who could never stay healthy, played sparingly at Oregon and Texas Tech, could never stay on the field, was cast off for Texas Tech for like his 7th year of college football. And once again, Jeff Brohm turns him into an all-conference caliber quarterback. And
a first-round NFL pick.
Yeah. Did he get drafted in the first round?
Yes, he went to the Saints.
In the first? That's insane.
I think that was a first round. Hold on. Let me just...
I remember him getting. I'm going to be honest. I tuned out a lot of the NFL draft this year, and I remember him getting hype on draft Twitter because of something he did at the combine.
Early in the second, 40th overall. So not a first round pick. That was Jackson Dart. That was the Giants traded back in to get him, but still early on in the draft was considered supposedly, according to all the NFL draft talking heads, to be in the realm of possibility at going like 15. And then the Saints ended up getting him in the second round. So still, point remains, a guy who literally was, the MASH unit and now is probably the starting quarterback for Kellen Moore's New Orleans Saints. How about that?
Rags to riches, man, courtesy of Jeff Brohm. And again, can he keep getting away with this? Because Miller Moss is another cast-off. He's going to try to do it for the 3rd straight year with somebody else's trash and make it his treasure. And I think Miller Moss is really talented. I think that he could do it again. This is a guy that there's a lot of dysfunction out at USC. We highlighted that on our Big Ten preview this year. And Miller Moss seems like kind of a tailor-made guy to be another rags to riches story under Jeff Brohm.
Moss might have both the highest floor and the highest ceiling of that trifecta of quarterbacks.
That's fair. Yeah, I think that's really fair to say. I think he's going to bring a lot of talent with him. The rest of the offense is fantastic. I have no other questions. The top 3 running backs are back. Isaac Brown ran for almost 1,200 last year.
Yep.
They lost Ja'Cory Brooks, but Chris Bell is back. Colin Lacey, who we thought was going to be the big guy last year before he got hurt. Where he came from somewhere in the Sun Belt, South Alabama.
South Alabama.
Yeah, so he had like 1,400 yards or something ridiculous like that at South Alabama. Came up to Louisville, got hurt, but he's back and finally healthy. And you mentioned being a little bit concerned about the O-line. To me, it's a pretty deep and experienced group. I'm actually pretty okay with what they have there. But
did they not lose a couple of depth pieces to the spring portal? I know they have 3 new starters, and then I thought they lost a couple of guys in the spring portal. Was why I was concerned. Okay.
That's possible. Yeah. I saw a quick look at their offensive line, but yeah, that's very possible. I'll defer to you on that one, but
I think the depth took a hit plus the 3 new starters was what I had in my notes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll defer to you on that one. But other than that, then I'm pretty high on the offense, and it's really going to boil down to is Miller Moss another treasure trove dive that he found from the dumpster.
Yeah, big thrift find potentially for Jeff Brohm and company. Talk to me about the defense. They're replacing 8 starters, but the wealth of talent seems to be at the linebacker spot. They've got Stequan Clark comes back. They've got TJ Quinn. They've got TJ Capers. That's not going to throw broadcasters off at all this season. And the defensive line has some experience as well. The secondary is entirely new. Some familiar faces. You've probably heard of Dave McCullough, who started at Indiana, I believe, went to Oklahoma, has kind of been around the block. Now he's at Louisville. So my question for the defense is they've been known for their pass rush, the havoc plays, getting that offense off schedule early on. Do you still see that happening here in 2025, or does the defense have to kind of reinvent itself?
That's a great question because I think the defensive line is probably going to take a step back. They lost a ton of guys up front, but
Yeah.
they did get Clev Lubin, who comes over from Coastal Carolina. He had 9.5 sacks last year for the Shanties. So if he can make the step up to ACC ball, play in the trenches in a power conference, then that answers one of those questions there. You mentioned the linebackers. I think that's going to be the strength of this side of the ball for Louisville. But yeah, the havoc plays from the defensive line are a concern. They were really good at stopping the run last year. I'm a little worried if there's a few more holes up the middle, if that kind of collapses a little bit this year. But yeah, I think far and away the biggest concern is the secondary. They lost their top three, like you mentioned. Another guy they got, though, is JoJo Evans from FIU. That's a very interesting portal addition. He played really well for the Golden Panthers last year. So it's just replacing the top three. It's replacing three really talented guys from that secondary, and that's always going to be difficult.
FIU fans, I know we've got some of you guys that listen. Pause Up podcast. Shout out to you guys. We know it's the FIU Panthers. I think Golden Panthers might have been an old name, but I'll save you that one. Do you think when you look at this schedule that they can get off to a hot start? Because I wrote in my notes that it's a little bit of a tricky schedule. James Madison, Bowling Green's probably mostly a reset. I don't know how nervous you are about the Bowling Green offense this year. But then at Pitt, Virginia, and Miami are how you round out that first half of the season. You talk about getting a hot dog at the turn. It feels like Louisville could certainly make some hay down the back half of that schedule. I think Clemson and SMU are the only two teams that scare you in the second half. But you've got to collect those wins early, get the momentum going, I feel like, to reach the ceiling of I've seen 10 wins thrown out as a ceiling for this Louisville team. I don't know I'm quite as high on them as that, but I could get them in that ballpark.
I think I'm fine with 10 as an absolute ceiling, but yeah, I'm a little worried about the start because I'm not sharping in a win against James Madison on a Friday night. That's going to be a Duke's team that's looking for a playoff statement win. And they're a really talented team and a really good program over there at James Madison. So not sharping in a win there. I think that's going to be a dogfight. They won in an ACC stadium last year and put up 70 points on North Carolina. So if you're not ready to play sound defense, they're going to embarrass you. Bowling Green, I think, is going to take a step back. But MAC teams in that top tier do play Power 5 competition pretty close. Bowling Green plays Power 5 competition pretty close historically. And I think that I think I'm going to, like I said, I think I'm going to take Pitt right now in that game in Pittsburgh. So you're looking at potential for a 2-2 start, and that could really start some wheels spinning and cause a lot of questions on especially how we get to that 10-2. If it's the defense busting coverages and they're losing some shootouts, okay, we stay the course. We trust our offense to work it out, and we find something that we can find an identity in on defense. But if Miller Moss is turning the ball over left and right and it's giving the other offenses short fields, then maybe we start to hit the panic button before that bye week going into the Miami week.
I could certainly see it maybe falling apart if they don't get lucky with Miller Moss, if he's turning the ball over left, right, and center and allows defenses to stack the box and try and figure out a way to take away Isaac Brown. I think that is much easier said than done. But at his best, man, Miller Moss, like I said, highest floor, highest ceiling of these quarterbacks that I think Brohm has had at Louisville. Cardinals could be a whole lot of fun, man. They could be a whole lot of fun. This offense is, I think, going to be must-see TV. And if the defense can catch up and, just improve on, especially in the secondary, the pass rush can get home. ACC, it's going to have some sneaky teams, some teams that I feel like are missed on the national radar. They're not going to get the SEC and Big Ten coverage. But you look up in November, and yeah, Louisville is 9-3 or going for their 10th win. And you kind of feel like, wait, how did they get here? What's their story?